Guys, it's evening here in Sydney, Australia. I'm still as jet lagged as all get up. So if I sound completely discombobulated, it's because I haven't had sleep and my body is still adjusting. And so, what is a girl to do when she can't sleep? She watches the incredible release of former hostage Edan Alexander. So, if you're joining me for the first time, this is the Israel Brief. I'm Rolene Marks, where we take a look at the top stories making the news in Israel. We do it every Monday to Thursday. As always, the Israel Brief is brought to you in partnership with Lay of the Land. And as many of you know, I am on a Weetso mission to Australia. And with the time difference and the traveling, it seems that my body and my brain are taking a few days to catch up with themselves. But a promise to you about bringing you your news is a promise kept. So let's take a look at those top stories. I'm also enjoying a nice cup of tea because they make it good here in Australia. It is day 585 since the 7th of October. There are still 58 hostages that are in captivity, held in untenable conditions by Hamas. We want them home now. So let's take a look at those stories making the headlines, and we begin with the release that nobody saw coming, but we are so grateful it did. And that was the surprise release last night of now former captive Edan Alexander. Edan Alexander was the last remaining living American hostage that was being held captive by Hamas, who are still holding onto the bodies of 4 other Americans who were either killed in captivity or on the 7th of October, and their bodies taken into custody. And I think all of us who have followed the Alexander family story from their roots in the United States saw that emotional moment when he was reunited with his mother and then with his grandmother, who in the true tradition of an Israeli savta, an Israeli grandmother, made sure that she brought all of his favorite dishes along with his family and his siblings and his loved ones who had been waiting for 584 days for his release. Now, the negotiations for this release took place behind the scenes between the United States and the Hamas officials. However, Steve Witkoff, who is the special envoy for the Middle East, lauded the state of Israel and for everything that we did in our involvement to ensure his release. And we all, the moment that we saw that he was in the hands of the Red Cross, who had 584 days to check on his well-being and didn't do it, we were relieved that at least for this former hostage, there was none of that fanfare, there was none of that grotesque carnival of the macabre that we saw with the release of other hostages. Now, there was some controversy because there was some reports in the news that he would be expected to go to Qatar with President Trump. However, Edan's grandfather said today that he will not be going to Qatar. He needs to rest. He needs to start the long recovery process. And I think we all can agree with that. Qatar, who are still harboring Hamas leaders, Hamas terrorists, to take a former hostage to Qatar for many of us would mean that he is still being held captive. Now, Israel's head of the health ministry commented on her concern for the well-being of the remaining hostages and said that while Edan to many might look okay, he was far from okay. And shortly after his release, he gave a little bit of testimony about what he had endured. He spoke about being interrogated for intelligence, tortured, starved, and being chained by the wrists and by the ankles. So I think it's very important that we need to remember that these hostages are starved. They are bombarded with food in the days up to their release, which could also sometimes account for the fact that their faces look healthy, because when your body's been deprived of food, of proper nutrients for so long, you do bloat up. They also are given salt water to drink during their time in captivity, which of course is extremely, extremely unhealthy and causes that bloated look. But there is grave concern for the conditions he was held in and the conditions our remaining hostages are being held in. So he will now start that long, very, very difficult recovery process. Now, the UNIFIL, that's the United Nations Interim Forces in Lebanon, they said earlier today that they had recovered about 225 weapons in southern Lebanon, which we presume belong to Hezbollah, which is a violation of the ceasefire and a violation of UN Resolution 1701 that says that Hezbollah, along with staying north of the Litani, also have to disarm. Now, in a coordinated operation with the Lebanese army, the troops confiscated those weapons and they have deployed about 150 sites throughout southern Lebanon. What is also very interesting and a very positive sign is that any staff who were working at Rafiq Hariri International Airport that had affiliations to Hezbollah have been removed. Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar is currently visiting Japan. This is the first visit by an Israeli foreign minister to a G7 country in 15 years. Now, the foreign minister will meet with his counterpart. He actually gave a press briefing a short while ago, and he will also meet with the Israel-Japan Parliamentary Committee and also address the media, which is very, very important. I'm sure that they have a lot of questions, and it's very, very important that media have this opportunity to speak to Israeli officials, ask those difficult questions. We don't have a problem with it, and have that opportunity to hear Israel's side of the story. I'm going to take another sip of my tea. I know you guys join me from around the world for your tea with the Israel brief. And quite frankly, speaking to you guys, enjoying a cup of tea with you is keeping me awake right now. And then finally, before we get to your audience question, Yuval Raphael will perform a little later at Eurovision in Basel tonight. She was at the opening ceremony and she was confronted with protesters. One protester reportedly did this to her, made the slit throat gesture, Palestinian flags, but Yuval, like her predecessor Eden Golan, conducted herself with incredible dignity, held her head up high, proudly waved that Israeli flag, and sent a message to the haters out there that we stand proud and we stand strong in the face of such unwarranted ignorance and hatred, and that we are proud to be Israeli no matter where in the world we are. Now, I'm in Australia, as you know, which accounts for the different Look Israel brief, and it gets dark here pretty quickly, and you can't see it, but behind me is the skyline of Sydney. It is absolutely beautiful, and I feel very privileged to be visiting with the Australian Jewish community on behalf of WITSO. And somebody sent a question to me saying, Rolene, you are in Australia. What is the feeling about the election results, this government? And I must tell you that amongst community members who I've spoken to, it's not very optimistic about the Albanese government, along with Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who has been re-elected to hold her position in Parliament. There's a lot of concern because of their extremely anti-Israel stance. Yesterday, Australia welcomed, I think it was about 1,000 Palestinian refugees from Gaza to the country, to the airport. This has many in Australia, not just Jews, but many feeling very, very uncomfortable because it's importing the conflict into Australia, and it's also importing groups of people who will incite hatred against Jews and allied communities. So there is a lot of concern, and you can be sure we will be watching this very, very carefully to see how this progresses, and to see if the Green Party, who were extremely anti-Israel, if their candidates losing their seats in government, if that affects any kind of foreign policy decision. So, and I hope that answers your question. And guys, thank you for bearing with me in my super jet-lagged state. If I look reasonably awake, it's because of makeup. But in the meantime, I don't always have access to the lay of the land, social media and stuff. So if you are sending messages and I don't reply, it's because I'm struggling with access to that. But in the meantime, guys, don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook page at Lottel's site. Our YouTube channel is right here at the Israel Brief. Guys, you know that there are many who are trying to shut us down. So if you do see us, hit that red subscribe button. We are on X at Lay of the Land 5, on Instagram at Rolene Marks, and on at Rolene_Marks, and on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks. And because I'm also struggling to get onto that as well, I won't be posting the brief to LinkedIn while I'm here, but I will be posting to Instagram. So guys, from me in Australia, good day to you. It's good night to me, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.